Oklahoma versus the SEC. How will the Sooners fare? Welcome to the Voice of College Football. We break down the game we all love each and every day with you. Best discussion, debate, and analysis, of course. You have come to expect that, and we will deliver. All right. Can't help myself. Of course, we do this each and every time we introduce a new program to a new conference. We break down what the projection is. And for Oklahoma, of course, we're going to look at the past. We're going to see what's changed, look ahead to the future, and project the Sooners against the SEC. Oklahoma's not played an SEC team the past two seasons, but when we go from 2012 through 2020, Oklahoma each and every season, ironically, played one SEC team every year. It looked like this. 2020, that debacle of a Cotton Bowl that Dan Mullen orchestrated led to an OU win at 55-20. And then three consecutive losses before that for the Sooners in playoff situations against LSU, Bama, and Georgia. Of course, the LSU game was a complete annihilation. The Bama game was not close, and the Georgia game was a classic. Oklahoma defeated Auburn, so consider in 2016 that the Sooners were the undefeated Big 12 champions. Auburn was tied with about a zillion teams in the SEC for second place, got the bid to the Sugar Bowl. So not necessarily a fair, like-seeded matchup here. Sooners won at 35-19. Back-to-back wins against marginal Tennessee teams in 2014 and 15. Although Baker Mayfield and company pushed to the brink against Tennessee in Knoxville 31-24, down 2 touchdowns in the third quarter in that game. 2013, of course, the Sugar Bowl, Oklahoma, big 2-touchdown underdog, knocked off the Tide 45-31 in that one. And if we go back to the Johnny Manziel Cotton Bowl game, Oklahoma torched by the Aggies 41-13. So that takes us through all of Oklahoma's results against the SEC all the way back to the 2008 BCS championship game against Florida, which, of course, Urban Meyer and the Gators won. Sooners 5, SEC 4. Now let's look at Oklahoma and how they fared in the Big 12. They have dominated this conference, and we will take their performance over the past 10 seasons in which they've won almost 79% of their games. That even takes into account a down 6-7 year under Brent Venables this past season. 81-20 against the conference. They're winning over 80% of their games against the Big 12. 12-9 against other Power 5 teams non-conference. That has been the likes of a home-and-home with UCLA, home-and-home with Ohio State, couple games against Notre Dame, and some other teams sprinkled in there. 12-9 against the Power 5. That's what it's been. What will it look like for the next 10 years for Oklahoma? Well, they've got a new head coach in Brent Venables. He's recruiting out of his mind. The transfer portal looks good. However, of course, the first season was rough at 6-7 and only 3-6 against the third or fourth best conference in college football in the Big 12. Ratchet that up against the SEC, and it spells trouble. Although Oklahoma, again, is Oklahoma, and keep this in mind. What happened to Texas A&M recruiting once they put that SEC logo on their jersey? Well, they went out there and they killed it in Texas recruiting, and they upgraded the program initially under Kevin Sumlin, and now Jimbo Fisher had a pretty good run before this past season's debacle and other issues there. So Oklahoma should be able to recruit better. They've had issues recruiting on the defensive side of the ball. 6th in the country in this 2023 class. Number 10, number 6, number 13, number 4. Those are the recruiting classes of Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley, and of course the last two under Brent Venables, both top 10 classes. So in the SEC, obviously the standard is much higher. You bring in a top 10 class, you might have the 5th best class in the SEC. But for Oklahoma, that's been pretty strong. Again, I would expect that they should be able to recruit even better, but winning breeds more success, and Brent Venables is going to have to turn it around. Good recruiting offseason once again for Venables. Bad season at 6-7. Got to find himself a quarterback, of course. Let's project this toward the next 10 seasons. So get this. 12 games in the regular season. That's 120 games over 10 seasons. Oklahoma currently winning at 79% of its games in the past 10 years. Knock that down a couple notches. 84-36 is the projection that we have here. So consider 9-3 would be 90-30. knock that back a little bit. A lot of 8-4s, a lot of 9-3s. Of course, Oklahoma, if they continue to excel in recruiting, and Brent Venables is the guy, will they go 11-1? Will they go 10-2 and notch those kind of seasons? Yes, they will. But there could be a down 5-7, 6-6 year in there as well. Over the past 10 seasons, 81-20. The record is odd because of the COVID year, odd number of games that particular season for the Sooners and just about everybody else. I'm going to go 50-30 right here. 5-3 against the SEC in a typical year for Oklahoma. They're going to do better than that, 6-2, 7-1. They're going to do worse than that. They're going to have some difficult seasons because there are few, if any, light touches in the SEC. Over the next 10 years, Oklahoma goes 50-30 against conference opponents. But it's about the playoffs. It's about a national championship. And, of course, we've got a whole new world that we can only anticipate to a certain extent what it's going to look like because Oklahoma has the opportunity, just like everybody else, to make a college football playoff without being one of the top 4 teams in the country starting in 2024 when they join the SEC. Oklahoma needs to go 10-2 most likely to secure a college football playoff berth. The SEC will dominate and will continue to be the strongest conference in America, with the Big Ten being the closest competitor. 9-3 will put any program, including Oklahoma, which you would think with their schedule in the SEC and their brand, would give them an upper hand in being selected. But 9-3 is kind of the borderline of the top 12 in America, or the top 11 when you consider the Group of 5 champion gets an automatic berth as well. Playoff positions for Oklahoma over the next 10 years, it's difficult to project, but let's say they make the playoffs 3 to 4 times in the next 10 years. That's our projection on Oklahoma football in the SEC. Leave those comments below. We would love to know what you think Oklahoma will do. Will they succeed? Will they get crushed in the SEC? Right here at the Voice of College Football.